Welcome, the rare gems. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Michel de Montaigne. Ever feel like you're living in a world that wasn't built for you? Like you're watching life from the outside, analyzing the patterns, the social games, the empty conversations, wondering why none of it makes sense to you the way it does to everyone else? That's because you're not wired like most people. You don't just exist, you observe. You don't just follow, you question. And in a world that thrives on conformity, that makes you feel like an alien. People expect you to care about things you don't. They want you to play along, to be impressed by status, to accept shallow relationships, to pretend. But you can't. You see through the masks. You sense the insincerity. And because you refuse to lower your standards for conversation, for connection, for purpose, you often walk alone. But let me tell you this. You are not wrong for being different. You are not broken for craving depth in a shallow world. You are not too much for wanting something real. Being a Sigma female means embracing the fact that you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to see beyond. And that's exactly what we're diving into in this video. Why you feel like an alien. Why that's actually a gift. And why the world will never quite understand you. But that doesn't mean you should ever change. Watch till the end. Let's get started. The rare gems. Number 1. They have an internal code that society doesn't recognize. Most people bend. They shift their opinions to match what's popular. They say what's acceptable even when it contradicts their true thoughts. They follow unspoken rules, smiling when they don't mean it, agreeing to things they don't believe in, playing along just to avoid conflict. Society rewards this. The more you conform, the smoother your life becomes. But Sigma females, they don't play that game. They operate on a code that wasn't handed to them by society. It was built from their own experiences, observations, and deep thinking. They don't believe something just because everyone else does. They don't change their values to fit trends. Their sense of right and wrong, of what matters and what doesn't, is internal, not dictated by external forces. This makes them feel like they're speaking a language no one else understands. While the world shifts based on social approval, they remain steady. This confuses people. It makes others uncomfortable. Why isn't she laughing at that joke everyone else found funny? Why isn't she eager to follow the latest trend? Why does she question things that everyone else blindly accepts? Because she's not here to fit in. She's here to see clearly. And that's the problem. Society doesn't know what to do with someone who can't be manipulated. Sigma females won't compromise their integrity for acceptance, won't fake enthusiasm to blend in, and won't participate in things that feel meaningless. This makes them outliers, and outliers often feel alone. But here's what makes this powerful. When you live by your own code, you don't get lost. You don't wake up one day realizing you've shaped yourself into something you're not. While others chase approval, you move with purpose. While they shift like the wind, you stand like a mountain. And that's why you feel different. Because you are. And that's exactly why you should never change. Number 2, they don't bond over shared opinions. They bond over shared mentality. Most people form friendships based on agreement. They like the same music, support the same causes, or share the same opinions on politics, trends, and life. It's easy, familiar, safe, and for the average person, that's enough. But Sigma females, they don't care if you agree with them. They don't need someone who thinks like them. They need someone who thinks, period. For them, connection isn't about surface-level similarities. It's about mentality. How does someone process the world? Do they ask deep questions, or do they just repeat what they've been told? Can they challenge ideas without getting defensive? Do they seek truth or just validation? This is why Sigma females often struggle to find true connections. Most people cling to their beliefs as if questioning them is a threat. They want conversations where everyone nods in agreement, not ones that force them to think. But Sigma females live for those deep, mind-expanding discussions, the kind where perspectives clash, ideas evolve, and no one walks away unchanged. This makes them incredibly selective with relationships. They could meet someone who shares all their opinions but still feel nothing. On the other hand, they could connect with someone who disagrees with them on everything but respects the process of thinking critically. That's the difference. And because this kind of connection is so rare, they often find themselves alone, not because they want to be, but because they refuse to settle for anything less than real depth. But here's the upside. When they do find someone with that same rare mentality, the bond is unshakable. It's built on mutual respect, intellectual freedom, and a shared hunger for truth. No forced agreement, no shallow validation, just two minds fully awake, fully engaged, and fully alive. That's not just friendship. That's alignment, and it's worth the wait. Number 3. They don't see themselves as victims of the world, but as outsiders who can bend it. Most people who feel like outsiders fall into one of two categories. They either crave acceptance and bend themselves to fit in, or they feel defeated and blame the world for not accommodating them. Sigma females do neither. They don't sit around feeling sorry for themselves. They don't waste energy complaining about how they don't fit into society's mold. Instead, they step back, analyze the system, and quietly start rewriting the rules. They see life as an open-world simulation, one where they're not just passive characters, but free agents who can create their own path. If the structures around them don't make sense, they don't force themselves to conform. They find back doors. They create loopholes. They figure out ways to exist on their own terms without begging for permission. While others obsess over climbing the social ladder, Sigma females question whether the ladder is even worth climbing. While the masses follow trends and traditions without thinking, they dissect the logic behind them. And if something doesn't hold up, they discard it and build their own alternative. This mindset is what makes them truly dangerous to the status quo. They don't operate on the same frequency as the rest of the world, and that makes them unpredictable. They can't be manipulated by social pressure because they don't need external validation. They don't seek approval, so they're immune to the fear of rejection. And because they aren't looking to fit in, they're free to innovate, disrupt, and reinvent in ways others can't. This doesn't mean the journey is easy. Walking your own path comes with challenges, isolation, and constant resistance from a world that doesn't understand you. But Sigma females don't see this as a burden. They see it as power. Because while everyone else is playing by the rules, they're out there bending reality to their will. Number 4. They feel like time travelers. Sigma females don't just think ahead, they live ahead. While most people plan their next weekend, they're mapping out the next decade. While others get swept up in trends, they're already seeing where those trends will lead and whether they're worth the hype. It's not that they're disconnected from the present, it's that their minds are always 5 steps ahead, calculating the ripple effects of today's choices. This gives them an almost eerie sense of foresight. They can predict patterns in people, society, and even their own lives. They see relationships fall apart before the first cracks appear. They recognize cultural shifts before they become mainstream. They understand how small habits compound over time, which is why they're often more disciplined, more strategic, and less likely to chase instant gratification. But this future-focused mindset makes them feel out of sync with the world. While everyone else is chasing temporary highs, validation, drama, short-term pleasure, Sigma females are thinking about consequences, impact, and longevity. They see people running in circles, making the same mistakes over and over, and wonder, does no one else see where this is going? This is why they struggle to relate to the masses. They don't get lost in meaningless social games because they know they won't matter in the long run. They don't waste energy proving themselves to people who won't be relevant in 5 years, and they don't tie their self-worth to fleeting approval because they're playing a much bigger game. Sometimes they feel like they belong in a future where people have evolved past the shallow concerns of today. A world where depth is valued over appearances, where wisdom is prioritized over popularity, and where authenticity outweighs social posturing. Until then, they remain outsiders, watching the present unfold like a story they've already read, waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. Number 5. They don't fear being alone. They fear being trapped. Most people run from loneliness like it's some kind of disease. They keep themselves constantly surrounded by noise, relationships, social media, endless plans, just to avoid sitting with themselves. Sigma females, They don't have that problem. They actually enjoy their own company. Silence doesn't scare them. It gives them clarity. Solitude doesn't drain them. It recharges them. But here's what does terrify them: being trapped. Not physically trapped, but mentally, emotionally, and socially confined in spaces that don't align with who they are. They fear waking up one day and realizing they're stuck in a relationship where they have to shrink themselves to keep the peace. They fear spending their energy on people who only offer surface-level interactions. They fear committing to a life that's been handed to them rather than one they've chosen. Meaningless conversations exhaust them. Social obligations that serve no purpose feel like a prison. They can't stand the idea of being locked into a routine, a belief system, or an environment that doesn't allow them to evolve. This is why they're always careful about who and what they invest in. They don't rush into friendships or relationships just to fill a void. They don't force themselves to fit into spaces that don't feel right. And they sure as hell don't follow society's script just because it's what everyone else does. This is why they're misunderstood. People assume they're distant because they're antisocial. They're not. They just refuse to engage in anything that feels forced or shallow. Others think they avoid relationships because they're scared of intimacy. Wrong again. They just know that the wrong connection is far lonelier than being alone. To a Sigma female, solitude isn't an empty space, it's freedom. But being trapped in a life that isn't her own, that's the real nightmare. Number 6. They struggle with the concept of blind belief. Most people are comfortable with accepting things as they are. They're taught what to believe about religion, culture, politics, success, and they follow it without much thought. After all, if millions of people believe something, it must be true, right? Not for Sigma females. They don't just accept ideas because they're widely accepted. They analyze them. They take a belief system, break it apart, inspect every piece, and put it back together to see if it still holds up. And more often than not, they find cracks, contradictions, hidden agendas, outdated assumptions, things most people either don't notice or choose to ignore. This makes faith, in any form, a complicated thing for them. Not just religious faith, but faith in systems, authority, traditions, anything that demands unquestioning obedience. It's not that they reject everything, but they can't blindly follow anything either. They need proof, logic, consistency. And most belief systems simply don't provide that. This puts them in an awkward position. When people say, just trust it, or you just have to believe, they can't do it. When society pushes a one-size-fits-all narrative, they instinctively resist. While others find comfort in certainty, Sigmas are more comfortable with uncertainty, because at least it's honest. This doesn't mean they walk through life faithless. It means their faith is earned, not handed to them. If they believe in something, it's because they've tested it, challenged it, and found it to be solid. If they trust someone, it's because that trust has been proven over time, not because it was expected. Their need for truth makes them outsiders, but it also makes them free. Because while others are trapped in belief systems they never questioned, a Sigma female moves through life on her own terms. No illusions, no blind faith, just the clarity of her own mind. Number 7. They are mentally nomadic. Most people build their identities around where they come from. Family traditions, cultural roots, national pride. They find comfort in belonging to a specific group, a specific place, a specific way of life. Sigma females, they don't think that way. Even if they love a city, a culture, or a community, they never feel fully tied to it. They might appreciate its beauty, respect its customs, and even participate in its traditions, but deep down, they remain mentally detached. They don't belong in the way others do. It's not that they're lost. It's that they see the world differently. They know that no single place, no single ideology, no single identity can define them. They don't feel the need to attach themselves to a fixed point because they understand that everything is temporary. Locations change, societies evolve, and identities shift. This mental detachment makes them feel like visitors everywhere they go. Even in places where they've lived for years, there's always a quiet awareness that they could pack up and leave at any time. No emotional chains, no blind loyalty, just the freedom to go where life makes the most sense. But this freedom comes with a cost. While others find comfort in their roots, Sigmas often feel like they're floating, never fully grounded, never fully home. They're mentally everywhere and nowhere at the same time. This nomadic mindset isn't just about geography, it's about thought. Sigmas don't commit to rigid belief systems or inherited traditions just because they were born into them. They explore ideas like a traveler moving through different lands, learning, adapting, and taking what resonates while leaving behind what doesn't. In a world where most people crave certainty, Sigmas are at peace with the unknown. They don't need a permanent home, a fixed ideology, or a singular identity. Their home is wherever their mind takes them. Number 9. They experience life in layers, not just moments. Most people take life at face value. If something happens, they react. If someone tells a joke, they laugh. If a friend vents about a bad day, they offer comfort and move on. But a Sigma female, she doesn't just experience things, she dissects them. She sees the layers underneath every interaction. A simple joke isn't just a joke, it's a window into someone's mind. Why did they say it? What's the underlying emotion? Was it truly humor, or was it deflection? Was it a test, a power move, or an unconscious cry for attention? Others laugh and move on, but her mind has already mapped out the psychology behind it. Conversations are never just words. She hears what's being said and what's being left out. She notices body language, tone shifts, the flicker of hesitation before someone speaks. She registers the tension in a room before anyone acknowledges it. When someone smiles, she can tell if it's genuine or forced. She doesn't just listen to what people say, she hears why they're saying it. This ability makes her hyper-aware of things most people never notice. It's why she rarely gets blindsided. She can feel when someone's energy is off before they even say a word. She can tell when a relationship is shifting before the other person even realizes it themselves. She connects the dots, sees the patterns, and predicts outcomes before they unfold. But here's the catch. This depth of perception can feel isolating. When you see life in layers, it's hard to relate to people who only see the surface. It can make interactions feel exhausting because you're not just present in the moment, you're analyzing everything at once. But this is also your power. You navigate life with an awareness most people will never have. You avoid traps others walk into blindly. You understand people better than they understand themselves. And while it may feel like a lonely skill, it's also what makes you unshakable. Number 10. They observe before they participate, which makes others uncomfortable. Most people jump right in. Whether it's a conversation, a trend, or a social situation, they engage without hesitation. They fill silences with words, react instantly, and throw themselves into whatever is happening. It's automatic, expected. And when someone doesn't do this, when someone stays quiet, watching, thinking, it unsettles people. That's the Sigma female. She doesn't just exist in a space, she studies it first. When she walks into a room, she doesn't immediately dive into the noise. She notices the energy. She picks up on dynamics most people miss. Who's the real leader here? Who's trying too hard? Who's masking insecurity with loudness? Who's watching her just as closely? People aren't used to this kind of presence. They expect instant engagement, but she gives them careful calculation. This throws them off. They don't know whether she's silently judging, waiting for the right moment, or just completely unimpressed. That mystery makes them uncomfortable. And here's the kicker. Often she really does know something others don't. While others rush to speak, she catches what they overlook. While they react impulsively, she spots patterns, and when she finally does participate, she speaks with precision. No wasted words, no desperate need for attention, just truth sharpened by observation. This makes her unpredictable. People don't know where she stands because she doesn't reveal herself immediately. And what humans can't read, they fear. But this is her strength. Because while others reveal too much too soon, she holds her power close. While they act without thinking, she makes moves that matter. She doesn't just exist in the world, she understands it. And that's exactly why she'll always stand apart. Number 11. They feel disconnected from group emotion. Ever walked into a room where everyone is caught up in a shared emotion, laughing at a joke, hyped about something trivial, or raging over some collective outrage, and you just don't feel it? It's not that you're cold or indifferent. You see what's happening. You understand why people are reacting the way they are. But for some reason, you just don't get swept up in it. That's the reality for Sigma females. While most people absorb the emotions around them like sponges, they remain detached. They don't merge with the group's energy. They observe it. It's like standing behind a glass wall, watching human behavior play out in front of them while feeling completely separate from it. It's not that they lack emotion. In fact, they feel deeply, but their emotions don't get hijacked by the crowd. They process things internally, independently, without the influence of groupthink. If everyone's furious about something, they're not going to react just because everyone else is. They'll step back, analyze the situation, and decide for themselves whether it's worth feeling angry about. If everyone's excited over some new trend, they don't automatically buy into the hype. They need to genuinely care about something before they invest their energy in it. This makes them seem distant, even unfeeling at times. Others might wonder, why isn't she reacting like we are? Does she not care? But the truth is, Sigma females simply don't let external energy dictate their inner world. They don't join in just because it's expected. They don't force emotions that aren't real. And while this can make them feel disconnected, it's also a rare kind of freedom. They see things clearly, without the fog of collective emotion. They stay true to themselves, even in a world that constantly pressures people to feel on command. And that in itself is a quiet kind of power. Conclusion. Feeling like an outsider isn't easy. Walking through life as if you're speaking a different language while everyone else seems perfectly in sync can make you question everything, your purpose, your place, even your own sanity. But here's the truth. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're just wired differently. And that difference is your greatest strength. Sigma females don't fit into the world because they weren't designed to. They weren't meant to follow the script, blend into the crowd, or adopt beliefs just because they're popular. They weren't born to be understood. They were born to see, to analyze, to question, to build their own path instead of walking one that was handed to them. Yes, it can be lonely. Yes, it can be exhausting. But here's what most people won't tell you. The world needs people like you. It needs people who don't just accept things as they are. It needs people who see deeper, think further, and refuse to settle for shallow connections, blind belief, or a life dictated by someone else's expectations. You don't need to change to fit in. You don't need to soften yourself to make others comfortable. The right people, the ones who understand your depth, your silence, your independence, will recognize you when they see you, and when they do, it will be real. Until then, embrace your difference. Own your perspective. You are not alone. There are others like you, scattered across the world, walking their own solitary paths. Keep going. Keep being exactly who you are. Because while the world may not always see you, it will feel the impact of your presence. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.